On today's podcast, we have an amazing guest. Rags to riches sounds cliche, but this is a real story of that. And I think if you listen to the whole thing, you're going to hear an amazing message, not just in business, but also in life. We've got a great role model and an awesome example today with Jeff Fieldstad. I know you're going to love this episode. Make sure you listen to the whole thing. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for being on another episode of Winning the Moment. I've got a special guest with me today. I actually had the pleasure of being on his podcast with his partner, the Solid Podcast. And today I have with me Jeff. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's good to be here.
It's so fun to have you here. I was just saying before we got rolling here, like your biceps are a little bit intimidating across the side there.
You're right.
And you're talking about the carnivore diet, and I wanted to ask you some about that anyway. So before we get into like the backstory, tell me a little bit about that because I'm interested.
Yeah, crazy story, dude. I mean, I've always kind of been into fitness and eating good, and I thought what I thought was eating good. I was kind of like, there was a time where I was a raw foodist. I was vegan,
Oh, because you've done all those different things.
all of them, and I always thought the more vegetables and the more fruits that I ate, the better I would be, the more healthy I would be.
Yeah.
And I never really had any health challenges per se, thank God. But about now 3 years ago, my wife started having some health challenges, just some weird things. And she started having these allergic reactions to food, and, her face would swell up, her hands would swell up.
Oh, wow.
And it was weird, dude. Yeah, I mean, she ended up in the emergency room.
And she'd always been healthy her whole life, too, like been a cheerleader in gymnastics and
Always.
like all that
Yeah,
stuff.
she was a high-level gymnast.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a cheerleader in high school. She always was into fitness, always working out. She was a yoga instructor.
Yeah.
And so there was never a time she really didn't work out.
Yeah.
She would run, whatever. And she started having these issues, and we just thought, like, what in the world? And so we were actually in Florida. I bought a boat, and we were getting ready to go sail around the world, and she started having these health issues, and they started getting worse and worse and worse. So we're in Florida, and I'd gotten COVID. And so I was just looking for somebody who would let me into a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, knowing that I had COVID.
Yeah.
So I found this lady, this naturopath doctor, went in there to go set an appointment with her, and she had this brochure, and it was like, hey, are you having these symptoms, whatever? And I'm like, so I went out to the car. I told Kelsey, I'm like, babe, I think this lady can help you, and we're in some random town in Florida.
Crazy.
Right? And so we set an appointment to go back and meet with her. We went in, and she said, have you ever heard of histamine responses? And I'm like, well, I know what a histamine is, right?
Yeah.
I know if I could take an antihistamine.
Yeah, right.
And she goes, did you know that every food you eat, your body has a histamine response? And different foods have different responses to it. She goes, but there is one food your body won't have a histamine response to, and that's fresh red meat. And I'm like, wow. And so at this point,
do you think because like we're like ultimately we've been around forever and we were meant to eat meat in the beginning because that was like our only source of protein?
Yeah, it's the way that our body was created, right? And it's the way the world worked. It was hunt. We would go hunt, and there would be a time where we would
do some gathering.
Yeah, where the hunt wasn't, maybe we didn't get an animal or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe you might forage.
Sure.
And at that point, if the fruit was in season or vegetables were in season, maybe people would eat those. But I think that's what it is. I don't know for sure, obviously. But,
right.
So she tells me this. She says, hey, go get Kelsey just a fresh ribeye tonight. Don't cook it with anything. Just put some salt on it, and she won't have a reaction. And at this point, Kelsey had been eating everything she would have a reaction to. Like, we were scared to death. She was getting depressed because she couldn't eat anything without us ending in the hospital.
Oh, man.
So we go home. We had rented this Airbnb in Florida. We cook a steak, and sure enough, she had no reaction to it. So this led me down this rabbit hole of like,
wow,
what in the world? You mean all of these fruits and vegetables we're eating? You hear so many people having leaky gut syndrome, all these issues. And I'm like, this is what it is. It's all these fruits and vegetables.
And at that time, I'm sure you guys were eating like good organic.
Oh, everything, 100% organic.
Right.
I mean, and we had for years.
Yeah.
I mean, we had never eaten anything probably for 10, 12 years that wasn't organic.
Got it. So you already were making really intelligent food choices and still having adverse reactions.
No soda, no sugar, nothing processed. If it came in a package, we didn't eat it. And so, and still having those issues. And so I just started going down this rabbit hole, and I was like, well, if she's doing it, so this doctor said, hey, let's get your blood done and just continue to eat this way. If you do me a favor and just eat this way for a few weeks, and we'll just see what your blood says. And so she starts eating this way, and sure enough, like 3 weeks later, she had never had a issue. So
Wow.
she gets her blood done. She's like, hey, here's these things we want you to work on. So we decided to come back to St. George at that time and go, hey, let's work on your health and get it done. And in that process,
Is that what brought you to St. George then? Kind of
brought us back.
Yeah.
And so, so I just started eating that way and then getting my blood done. And dude, my testosterone, when I first got it done, I mean, I never had my testosterone really tested. They told me like, oh, it's average every time, but I didn't know what average was. Like, oh yeah, the doctor says it's average, but it was 300. And so as I started doing my research, I'm like, that's not average. That's
I don't even know, like on the scale where 300 sits.
Yeah, like it would be average for a 70-year-old man 30 years ago, but it is average for a 30-year-old man today.
Wow, because our testosterone has dropped so much.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
For lots of different reasons,
Yeah.
right? And so I started eating this way, and then 6 months later got my blood done and went up to 800, and then I got it done a few months later. It was like 950, and I'm going like, dang. And then I started talking to guys about it, and I realized like all these guys are on TRT and taking, testosterone supplements and all this stuff, and I'm going, dude, I just increased my testosterone threefold.
Naturally.
Yeah, I'm not even taking a vitamin just from this diet.
Yeah.
And so it's been awesome, man. I feel good. I feel better than I've ever felt in my life.
And so carnivore is specifically red meat then. It's not chicken. It's not poultry. It's...
Yeah. I mean, there are different versions of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way I started was just eating a ribeye every day, basically. I would eat one meal a day and just make sure it was enough of a ribeye.
Really? You just ate one?
Yeah. So that's how I started.
What about now? What are you doing now?
So pretty much I just buy a whole cow.
Yeah.
So
that's the way to do it.
Whatever cut.
Yeah.
Like last night we had a roast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But are you still only having one meal?
Yeah. I usually only eat one meal a day. Sometimes I'll eat breakfast. I like to eat eggs and I'll eat eggs and some other kind of, whatever meat for breakfast. And then I'll have a big dinner. And I usually do that inside of a 5-hour window. But on the Solid podcast recently, we had Dr. Kiltz, who's a pretty world-renowned doctor on our podcast talking about carnivore, and he kind of challenged us to one meal a day. So I've been trying to do that more, and I feel amazing.
Wow. Yeah. So what time do you typically eat if you eat that one meal? Like what's the best time?
4 o'clock.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow.
I have a lot of freedom, so not everybody gets that freedom to go eat at 3 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
If I was working like a regular job or something, I would just eat dinner. That's the only way I'd do it. I'd probably eat dinner around 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
So do you drink coffee or anything?
Yeah, I do drink coffee.
Do you drink it black?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put some cream in it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, how interesting. So something else you said that I just got to talk about. So you bought a boat to sail around the world.
Yeah.
So what happened with that then? You obviously didn't do it.
Yeah, so we were living on it actually. So I bought this big boat.
Like a sailboat?
Yeah, a big catamaran.
Wow.
And
did you go get like a captain's license?
No, I have a buddy who has a captain's license who's been doing that forever. I mean, that's what he does. And so I had worked with him to teach me just how to do it, And so if they work with you for a certain amount of time, you don't necessarily get a captain's license, but really the big thing is insurance. Will an insurance company insure you? Yeah. So I had enough experience at that point where it'll give me some insurance.
And so you guys just gonna like homeschool your kids and travel around?
Yeah, we've always homeschooled our kids.
Oh, you are homeschooling them now? Always have?
Yeah. I'm that's a whole nother subject. But school's not the same as it was when we were kids.
No, not at all. Yeah. I mean, fuck, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's beyond crazy. So yeah, we were homeschooling our kids, living on the boat, and really just when Kelsey started having these health issues, it's expensive to keep a boat like that just sitting there. I mean,
yeah, right.
So it's like,
so what did you sell it or?
Yeah, sold
you
it.
Did.
Thank goodness, because there's a big hurricane that came through Florida.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of my friends lost their vacation home.
Oh, dude, we were in Fort Myers. That's where we were at. Yeah. It just wiped it out. I mean, it was crazy. All those boats, every boat that was there around ours, gone.
Wow. And so this house that they built it right on the beach, and they didn't have their CO yet, so they didn't even own it.
Dang.
And the hurricane took it out, and so it's like, no one wants to. Like the builder doesn't want to eat that, obviously. So they're just in litigation because it's like, what do you do?
Yeah. Just insurance. Yeah.
And they didn't have insurance because they didn't own the house.
Exactly. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's tough, dude.
So do you think you guys will go back then? And do you still aspire to?
Oh yeah. At some point. Yeah.
Sail around the world.
Yeah. It just changed our plans. It's just, God always has a different plan sometimes, and that's all right. You just got to pivot and make it happen. So I just realized, my family's more important than me pursuing a dream.
Sure.
So it was like, I can always do that, but just getting my wife's health on track, and she's feeling good.
I was going to say, how's she doing now? Do you feel like she's there?
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Sure.
What did you have? Was there any particular destination you were going to sail to that was like you were so excited about? Like, what was that one main spot?
Yeah, South Pacific.
Okay.
South Pacific Islands, French Polynesia, those kind of things.
How long were you planning on like living on the boat for?
Until I was done.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow, how cool is that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's talk about your backstory because I'm sure people
Okay.
listening who don't know you are like, how's this young dude have the freedom to travel around the world? You know,
Yeah.
so talk about how you got to that point.
I'm blessed for sure. Yeah. I grew up in southern Utah in St. George, and I was doing advertising and marketing for a living for my mother-in-law. Got out of high school. I should say I'll go back a little further. Got out of high school, started college. I was there for one semester.
Oh, so you did. I never knew if you did or not. So you did start college.
I did start college, yeah. And I was there, and I saw my professor's car one day. I was going to school to get a business degree because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And saw my professor's car one day. It was like an old beat up car, you know?
Yeah.
And I never really talked a lot in school. You know, I was not this big talk a lot guy. And so the professor, I said something in class. I go, hey, dude, why don't you teach us, or why don't you do this stuff you're teaching us? You know, I could tell by his car that's not what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he kicked me out of class that day, just asked me to leave. So I remember that day I called my mom. I'm like, this guy's a hypocrite.
He kicked you out because he thought you were being disrespectful?
Yeah. And I guess I can see it that way now, but I mean, I was the kind of person, I just slept through class all of high school. So I never had anything to say because I never really cared. I was just there because I had to be.
Yeah.
And I was bored. I got okay grades. Like I graduated with like a 3.4. You know?
Yeah,
so
that's the same, exact same as me.
Yeah, so it's not like I did bad. I didn't do great because nothing ever challenged me. I was
in school in Utah is so easy that you could sleep all the way through and still get a 3.4.
Yeah, and I really did. And so this is like the one time I actually said something, and it was like a genuine question.
Right, you were being inquisitive, not being an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
You were really like, hey, I don't understand. If you know how to do all this stuff,
why aren't you doing it?
And you could improve your life, why do you choose to be in the classroom?
Exactly. And at that time, these superficial things like a vehicle, knowing now, I know some super wealthy people that drive cars just the same.
Yeah.
But at that point, you're young, 18, 19 years old.
You look at what people has and you think that illustrates their success.
Yes,
at that age.
Exactly. Especially from the way I grew up. I mean, I grew up in a single wide trailer, So for me, like any sort of monetary success meant you could live in a nice house, drive a nice car.
Right.
And so, just asked him. He kicked me out. I called my mom. I said, Mom, I'm quitting college. And I'm the first kid in my family to graduate high school, let alone,
So you're the first kid to go to college?
Yeah.
I was the first kid in my family to not go to college.
There you go. That's awesome. Someone had to break the mold. Someone had to be smart enough.
Yeah.
So, man. So I left that day, started doing advertising and marketing for my mother-in-law. And I really liked it. I was making good money. My first month, I was 19 years old. I made $7,000, and then I got it up to where I was making about $12,000 a month.
And that was in St. George?
Yeah.
Wow.
And at 19, making $12,000 a month.
That's awesome.
I felt like I had the world in the palm of my hands.
Especially coming from your background too, right?
Yeah, nobody I knew ever made that money.
So did you, when you're making that much money at such a young age, did you struggle because you probably was it fun to spend it, I would imagine?
I spent it all.
I'd imagine, right? Because you never had it. So you finally had it. And you're like, I'm going to get all these things I never had.
And on dumb stuff, dude. Like clothes and restaurants.
Right, of course dumb stuff.
I was dating my wife, and so I'd send her roses like every day,
And a car, I'm sure.
Yeah. Actually, I bought her. So I helped her with a vehicle, but I didn't actually buy a car myself at that point. Maybe I did a little bit later. Actually, I did. I bought a Nissan Altima, so it's not like I bought a super nice car.
Yeah, right.
But for me at that time, it was nice.
So how did you learn your financial intelligence? Did you just self-teach yourself after you were like, man, I'm making all this money and don't have anything to show for it? Or
no, I never in doing advertising and marketing, I never learned it there.
You didn't.
So what happened was I got my pay cut. So my mother-in-law, who owned the company, had some partners, and here I was, this 19-year-old kid, making $12,000 a month, and they're going, man, but he's making more than we are at this point owning this company.
Yeah,
and so we got to cut his pay. And so in the meantime, Brandon Neal had been trying to recruit me into financial services.
Yeah.
And I just didn't think I could do it.
Yeah.
I respected him, and I knew he was successful, but I'm like, I can't do that. There's no way. Like, what do I know about money? I got to talk to people who are 40 years old. I'm 19. Like, nobody's going to listen to me. So he'd been trying to recruit me. And then when I got my pay cut, no joke, 20 minutes later, he called me. He was like, dude, how's life going? I'm like, man, you won't believe it. He goes, I've been trying to tell you that's what happens in corporate America.
Interesting, because there's two really good stories there. One, good salespeople usually will make more than the owners.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a good thing because the owners don't understand is that if you built the company right, that's benefiting you and you want them to be successful. Two, I think a lot of really successful people, when they first start out, always suffer that pay cut thing.
Yeah.
Because and it happened to me too, right? In sales, where then you're making so much money that everyone's like, hold on. something's broken. This isn't supposed to be this way. And 3, what would appear to be devastating in the moment, right? Because when you got your pay cut, you were probably thinking like, oh my, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Because also you thought like I needed to make that much to live at this point because you were spending it all.
Well, not only that, but it was my mother-in-law who owned the company. So I
So
thought,
then you're like upset with her. And
yeah, like what the heck? You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, getting ready to marry your daughter, and this is what happens.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
that's a
Come
very
on.
interesting dynamic. So then I think in life, what's so important is that thing happens that feels so traumatic, but because that thing happened, you were more responsive to the phone call.
Oh, yeah.
Had your pay cut not happened, you probably would have said, no, I'm good. Right. And so you can never appreciate the things that feel like losses in the moment because you don't have the ability to see the future. But when you look back on your life, almost all of the most challenging things, I believe, you wouldn't change it because those create opportunities for the next step.
Yeah, it's a willingness to go through hard things.
Yeah.
That's the only time growth really happens, right?
Right.
Without winter, you're not going to have a spring.
Absolutely. Okay. So Brandon calls you and you're like, ugh.
So yeah, so he calls me and he invites me down to this meeting. So I'm like, all right, I'll just go. I say yes, and then Kelsey, it was on a night Kelsey and I were going to go on a date, and so I go, hey, I got this buddy, and he invited me down to this meeting. I told him I'd pop by after we have dinner. So we go, and she's like, why the heck aren't you doing this? He'd been following up with me for like a year and a half.
Okay.
She's like, why aren't you doing this? And I'm like, babe, it's way harder than it looks. Like I'm gonna have to
that's
work
not
my
easy.
butt off. Well, at that time he was making like $30,000 a month. And she goes, I don't care how hard it is. She was working full time at Best Buy, right? With you at the time.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah.
And she goes,
Yeah, we worked together twice because then we worked at Best Buy together and then she came and worked at Alto.
And
with
Alto,
me.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And she goes, do you know, it takes me like 2 years to make 30,000. It's taking him 30 days. So I don't care how hard it is.
What a great perspective.
Yeah. And she was 17.
Yeah.
So you had to get a license with the state.
Yeah.
And so she was too young to get a license. I didn't think I could do it. So she just believed in me. She's like, you can do this. So I'm like, all right, here I go. And so got started and made $15,000 my first year, which wasn't a ton of money. I was, in addition
because you're
to my
doing the
job.
marketing thing too.
Yep, exactly. So just in addition to my job, and then, everybody's making fun of me, thought I was crazy, going into financial services and learning something new. I was just a young kid and only made $15,000 my first year. I kept telling everybody I was going to be successful. And then at the end of that year, we qualified to open up our own brokerage. And so when we did that, we moved from Southern Utah up to Boise. And we didn't have any money, man. I'd blown everything. Kelsey had $3,000 in a Roth IRA. So we pulled that money out.
Wow.
Drove 9 hours away to Boise and
So it
put
really took everything you had to get there.
100%, dude. We put first and last months down on an office. So we didn't even have a place to live, but we had an office. And so we had an office, and then we had like $400 left over. And then some girl she worked with at Best Buy was looking for a roommate. And so that's where we went to go live, is with her at first. And just started building our business in Boise. And then that...
Hold on really quick, because I think that you have to, for the people who are listening, because they see your success now, right? And they want that success, or maybe they're envious of that success, or they're like, I wish I could have what Jeff had. Yeah. But it's so important for people to know, like, you and your wife shared a bedroom with a stranger, or rented a bedroom from a stranger.
It's
you know what I mean?
Person's house.
That's what it takes. So you have to have all the sacrifice. And so I think it's so important that people get to hear those stories. Yeah. So they realize, like, to get to this thing that you desire, you've got to make so many sacrifices in the beginning to get to that place.
Yeah, there's a price you got to pay.
Absolutely.
And it's different for everybody's story. Everybody's different. That's, you just never know your journey and what season you're in right now and what it's going to look like. But yeah, for us at that time, that's what it looked like. And so Kelsey was still working at Best Buy because she has actually.
So did she transfer then? Okay.
Yeah, because they were opening up a brand new store in Nampa, which is like, a city in Boise, basically just outside. And so she transferred her job, and I think she was making like $1,500 a month. And but that was enough to pay our office rent. It was the only thing we couldn't put on credit cards at the time. So one of the pieces of advice someone gave us, hey, if you're going to go start a business, get as much credit as you can before you quit your job.
Right.
And so I opened up all these credit cards.
Yeah.
And but we could pay our office rent because they wouldn't take credit cards. So we could pay our office rent with Kelsey's income from Best Buy. And we were living in this bedroom from this girl's house that we rented. And just started building our business. And the 10th month there, we made $14,000. And the next month we made $21,000. Next month we made $19,000. And so we ended up making $114,000 that first year there. Which
Nice.
at that time, I was 21, I think, by this time. And
Yeah, you're in the 1%, making six figures.
Yeah, and made 100,000. But now our income was growing rapidly monthly. So now we're starting to make 20, 25, 30,000.
Because now compound interest is working in your favor. And
yeah, that next year we made 220, and that was in 2008. And then in 2009, the world was falling apart.
Yeah.
It was a horrible recession. Probably a lot of people listening to this don't realize that. I mean, it was crazy. People
It was
were
so
mailing their
bad.
keys back to the bank.
It was the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. And in 2009, we made 465,000, and I was 24.
Wow. So in 2008, you made 220. And then even in 2009, with all of that happening, you doubled it again.
Doubled our income. Yeah.
Wow.
So we made 465. And during those 3 years, we had moved into a condo. At one point, it was like $625 a month. We were in this condo. Here I was making $30,000 a month, paying $600 a month for rent.
Yeah.
And I was still driving a Nissan Altima at that point. It's still a same car.
Yeah.
I never bought a new car. I was living below my means. I was just trying to save money. And then Kelsey was actually driving a Mazda 6 that she had bought in high school as well.
Okay.
And so she was still driving the same car. And I remember my payment was $321. Her payment was $260. And that was our car payment. So here we were making $30,000 a month, paying $600 a month for rent,
$1,100 for your
a car.
biggest expenses.
Yeah, exactly. And we were just saving money like crazy. And then in 2010, our company went public. And so we went to the New York Stock Exchange, and we put a bunch of money into that. And the company gave us a bunch of stock. And April 1st of 2010, the company went public, and then it started at $15 a share. And by the end of that first day, it was $20 a share. And then by March of 2011, I was a cash millionaire. I was still 25 years old.
Wow.
Kelsey was 22 at the time. We'd been saving our money. But at that time, we started making about $50,000 a month.
And so when you were saving your money at that time, what was like the inspiration to be so frugal?
I was scared to death, dude. I was just, I had a goal. So I wanted to be a millionaire. Like that's really was my goal. I just wanted to be a millionaire. So I knew exactly what it took.
And when you say a millionaire, for you, did that mean $1 million in cash, or did that mean $1 million in assets?
7 figures in a statement. Yeah, not assets. Because by then our business was worth far more than that. Right. So I mean, like I had $1 million I could get liquid.
Yeah,
cash.
cash.
That I could cash it out today.
Yeah.
And so I knew that in order to do that, like if I was going to get 12% on my money, for example, and I wanted to save $1 million in 10 years, I needed to invest $4,250 a month at 12%, right? If I was going to do it in 5 years, I needed to invest $12,500 a month. So I knew exactly how much I needed to invest to get $1 million.
Yeah.
And I used to tell Kelsey, I go, look, I know this is going to be a lean season. And once we get that $1 million, it'll continue to grow and compound interest over the years. And you can buy whatever you want after that. But just stick with me.
Right.
Let's just stay lean and mean, keep our expenses low. We'll live way below our means. A lot of people criticized us. People come into our business, go, what kind of car do you drive? And I was driving
because you're in like financial services. They want to see you. Like some people want to see that Mercedes. So they're like, okay, he knows what he's doing. He's got a Mercedes.
Yeah. And I would tell them, I go, look, dude, if you're impressed by a car, you're the wrong kind of person.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to see my mutual fund statement, you can't feed your kids with a car. But I could feed my family with a big mutual fund statement. So I would show my mutual fund statement in front of a crowd,
Did you, because you had such a huge income in that time of disparity, did you guys pick up like real estate or anything, or make any of those investments?
I was just putting my money in mutual funds at that point. That's what we did. That's what we taught. So I was like that guy.
So you're practicing what you preached.
Yes. Like I genuinely believed it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't this, it wasn't, and I didn't buy a house till I could pay cash for it. Like the first house I bought was in 2011 during the crisis.
Yeah.
And it was in Las Vegas. I always wanted to own a penthouse. I drive through a big city and see the, like Bruce Wayne living at the top of the building. And so that was like always one of my dreams.
Yeah.
And one time Kelsey went to go visit Las Vegas to go see her brother, and she bought a house without me. Like I'd never even seen it.
Oh, no way.
I was so mad, dude. I tried to get a lawyer to get our money. It was too late. And so we ended up moving to Las Vegas.
I can't believe she went rogue and just bought a house.
She knew I would never do it, man. She's like, you're so cheap.
She was just tired. She was like, it's time.
Yeah.
Did you guys have kids at the time that she bought the house?
No,
not yet. Okay.
No, we didn't have our first child until 2016. So
okay.
That was another, I always told her, when I'm 30, I'm okay to start having children when I'm 30, because I wanted to be at a place where it was like, when we start having kids, I want to be able to spend every day with them. I didn't have a dad that was there with me growing up. You know, my dad wasn't around. And so I just wanted to be, it was like my all-time goal was to just be a great father.
Yeah.
You know?
And be present.
Yeah. And not just present, but selfishly there for everything.
Yeah.
Not just for them, but I wanted to be.
Yeah, sure.
You know? And so it was an important thing for me. So I just always had this thing like, hey, when I'm 30, I'll be at a place where we can start having kids. And that's when it happened.
It's amazing too, because by sacrificing that time, if you want to call it a sacrifice, really all you did was give yourself more time, you know, because you were able to accomplish so much more by being able to be so driven without feeling guilty that like, oh, I don't want to take this appointment tonight because my son's got a soccer game or something. Right. You'd have to make those sacrifices, which inevitably stop your time to grow.
Yeah. See, and I always told everybody like, it wasn't a sacrifice to me.
Yeah.
None of it was a sacrifice. It was all taking advantage of an opportunity I had available to hit my goals.
So really strategic is the right word.
Yeah. It like, you know, sacrifice is like giving up something you want for something better.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't look at it as a sacrifice. I wasn't sacrificing anything.
Really intentional.
Yeah, I was just taking advantage of an opportunity to be able to build the life that I really wanted. And I was willing to go through that process.
What a great story for the listeners, because when you do live intentionally and you weren't just like aimlessly like, yeah, I'll go to work and see what happens. Like you had all of these like where you really knew what you're going for. And because of that, you are able to live a life now that I think so many people would aspire to have, but it started with intention.
No doubt. Yeah.
Like you had a plan and a purpose.
Oh, dude, I carried around. So I would write it on these 3x5 cards every day. I carry around 3x5 cards. I write my goals down. I had personal goals, financial goals, spiritual goals, and I write them down on 3x5 cards every morning. I had affirmations that I would tell myself every day. And it got to a point where I just called it magic paper. It was like, dude, everything I write on this 3x5 card comes true.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because I was just obsessed with it.
Well, I really believe the universe gives you everything you want, but you have to be intentional with what you want so the universe can create the pathways to achieve it, right?
No doubt.
And so if you're just aimlessly going through your day, the universe is like, I have no idea what Jeff wants, so I can't really give him any opportunities.
Right.
But you every morning told the universe, this is exactly what I want.
Yep.
And so the universe said, here you go. You know?
It's like Wayne Dyer said, I can help anyone get what they want. The problem is I can't find anybody who knows what they want.
Yeah.
It's true, because you ask most people, like, what do you want out of life? And they just like, oh, well, I don't travel. Like, where to? Like, oh, I want to buy a new car. What kind of car? I want to live in it. What kind of house, right? And so how in the world are you ever going to achieve something? You actually don't even know what it is that you want.
Yeah. I'll never forget. My youngest sister, Sarah, she goes, yeah, I just want to have financial independence. And I said, okay, what does that mean for you?
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, well, then how the hell are you going to get it?
Exactly.
Like, if you're not going to define, you just said it because it sounds nice and other people say it. And so you think like, oh, that sounds good. Because obviously financial independence sounds like a good thing, but if you don't put parameters around what it means to you,
right,
then how are you ever going to achieve it?
It's not actually a goal. It's just a wish.
Right. You know what I mean? And so I think the important thing too for listeners is like, because someone might listen to that and say, I love that. I'm going to do that tomorrow. Yeah. And it will be easy tomorrow to do it. The second day will be a little bit harder. 365 days from now to have the commitment to do that every day is so challenging, but it's those type of commitments that make such a huge difference.
Yeah, it's just making a decision, man. It's like you have all these sayings, like it takes 21 days to build a habit. I don't know how long it takes to build a habit, but I do know this. If you make a decision to just do it every day, you wake up every day, then it's a habit. You just build it into something.
And that's really what it is. You're removing the decision and you just already decided. Because if every day you debate whether you're going to do it, am I going to eat healthy today? Am I going to go to the gym today? You're creating an opportunity to sell yourself out of it. Yeah. So it has to just be, there isn't a choice. This is what I'm doing.
It's like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Hopefully you just do it every day, right? Hopefully.
It's amazing how many people probably don't do that either. Okay, so back to the story. So Kelsey buys a house. So now you move from Idaho to Vegas.
Yeah, and just start all over. And really that kind of happened. It was weird, dude, because I've always believed that if whatever you settle for is ultimately going to be your reality. So it's not necessarily this thing. It's like, what are you willing to settle for? And so I remember one time we didn't have kids yet. I was driving back into our neighborhood. This time we were renting a house. And I remember our house, we were paying $1,125 a month.
This is Idaho then?
Yep, still in Boise. And I'm pulling into our neighborhood, and this time I bought a Cadillac. You know, some listeners might remember GM was going bankrupt. Yeah, and you can get a crazy good deal on Chevy or GM cars. And so I buy this Cadillac, and so I'm driving through our neighborhood, pulling up, and it was a Friday night, and everybody's loading up their campers. Well, I lived in a trailer growing up. And so like a camper to me, I still see one, I still get angry, man. It's like, it's just this negative feeling that I see. Like a lot of people do that and to have fun, but for me, it was never fun.
Yeah, it was like a prison.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was driving in, everybody's loading up their campers, getting ready to go escape for the weekend. And I walk inside and I'm like frustrated. And Kelsey's like, what's wrong? I go, our kids are never going to grow up in a neighborhood like this. Like, I don't want my kids to look at us and go, they settled to see all these people just go camping for the weekend so they can escape their life, escape reality. And then they come back Monday morning, can't wait for hump day Wednesday. Thank God it's Friday.
Right.
All this BS that people tell themselves. I don't want to raise kids in an environment like this. It's average and ordinary. And at this time we were making $50,000 a month, you know?
Yeah.
And so I started realizing like the environment we're in is going to determine our children's perspective as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I started getting comfortable. You know, when you're in an environment like that, you're making more money than anybody you know.
And your expenses are so low, you got no stress.
Yeah. So I started getting comfortable. I'm like, we got to go to an environment where we're like around a bunch of mega successful people. And so that's where that conversation started. That's why she purchased the house in Las Vegas. It's like, you go to Vegas, man, there's a lot of people that make a lot of money and are very successful and live these incredible lives.
Yeah.
So anyway, she buys that house. We moved down to Vegas July 4th of 2011.
How was the house? Was it a dope house?
It was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
It was high rise, 27 floors, like living in a 5-star hotel every day.
That's awesome.
You know, right on the strip. It was awesome, dude.
Was that like in City Center?
No, it was on the corner of Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard.
Okay.
So it was in a building called Allure.
Okay.
And it was awesome, man. We had a great time. You know, we had some cool neighbors that were mega successful. And, you know, I had valet guy 24/7, so he'd have my car out in front for me every morning.
That's awesome.
AC, you know, Vegas is hot.
Right.
We wanted groceries. If we're out of town, we can call someone. They go shopping groceries for them, put it in our fridge, whatever, clean our house, do whatever. It was like living at a hotel. It was awesome. Yeah. And then, you know, so we started all over. So at that point, you know, we were already cash millionaires, but we're starting from scratch in Vegas, building a brand new business.
Did you keep your business in Idaho and just had someone running it, and then you just went and started a new chapter, basically?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And so we started all over there, and it exploded quick, dude. Because now at this point, we had the experience, and it's like once you've done it once, you're like, all right, I know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. I know what to do, how to handle challenges.
So much more opportunity in Vegas too, obviously.
Well, yeah, that too as well. And at this time, dude, it was 2011, so it was like, I mean, the recession hit Vegas hard.
So hard, yeah. That and Phoenix were like the two hardest hit places, I think.
Yeah, and so, you know, while it did, I did have to change my messaging because people thought different. It was a different city. And so, but it exploded. We exploded fast and grew our business very fast. You know, we started setting all kinds of records in the state that had never been done before. You know, and so as we started doing this stuff, then in 2016, we had our first son, which is Rome, and he was born in 2016. And that month that Rome was born, we had the biggest month we've ever had in our entire careers. You know, our business did more production, we made more money than any other time, and so it was cool. So then we started having kids. And then so at that point, then we built a big house in the outskirts of Vegas in a place called Henderson. Yeah, and built this huge dream home. And crushed it, man. We were like the first house in a neighborhood of 52 homes, and then all these famous people started moving in. And so we sold it in 2018, and we built it in 2018, sold it 2 years later, and then COVID hit. So
you sold it before COVID?
Yeah. And then COVID hit. We started coming down to St. George. You know, this is through the process. So we had sold our business in November of 2020. So that's when we sold our business. Okay.
Did COVID impact your business at all?
It helped it.
It helped it
tremendously because we were what's called an essential business, which every business is essential.
So you got to continue to operate.
Not only we continue to operate, but they made it easier for us. So they like reduced all these regulations in the financial services business.
Oh, okay, got it.
So like prior to COVID, like especially in the securities business, you got a securities license. Like you're very regulated on what type of email you can send.
Yeah, right. Or even what kind of thank you gift you could give someone.
Or using an electronic means of communication or like using Zoom. All that stuff was very regulated. It was hard to do business that way. So when COVID hit, they just reduced all those barriers. And it was like, man, now we could go from this local business where it was like face-to-face, really.
You get on Zoom with 100 people. You could pitch 100 people an hour instead of one person an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just like exploded our business. So we were coming to St. George because St. George was somewhat normal.
It was, yeah. I mean, relatively, it was normal.
Yeah. And so we started renting Airbnbs because in Vegas, dude, you couldn't get food at the grocery store.
Wow.
Right? I mean, the food was gone. The strip was shut down. All the hotels
Oh no, I
were
remember.
boarded
I
up.
got a picture of Megan and I on one of those bridges on the strip.
Yeah.
We're the only people out there.
Yes.
It was
They
absolutely
drained
insane.
the Bellagio fountains.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I wish I would have got more pictures. Like, I wish I would have done more to like look back and be like, look at me in all these places, like in New York or somewhere. You
Yeah.
know, like I wish I would have went
Me
to all
too.
of these landmarks and taken these pictures and been like, look how crazy this was.
Seriously, yeah, I don't think we realized at that point just like how crazy it really was. But anyway, so coming down to St. George, rent these Airbnbs. We're like, oh, St. George is normal. So we just kept coming back. And then there was supposed to be a quarantine in April in Utah. Nobody really abided by it. But
Yeah, I don't even remember that.
yeah. And so anyway, that time, like, construction, they didn't know what was going to happen. And so we just started putting offers on homes. We'd sold our house in Vegas and started putting offers on homes and put this like super low offer on a house here. And they accepted our offer. So we're like, all right, guess we're moving to St. George now. So
Wow.
Then we moved to St. George there. And that was, we put the offer April of 2020. We sold our business November of 2020. And then shortly after that, we bought the boat. And
Oh, so you have another boat now?
No, that was the boat. That was
okay.
when we bought that boat. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Okay.
like the beginning part of 2021.
Got it.
So that was a couple of years ago. So that's kind of the story of how we got here, man. And now, we just live this incredible life and, we've got a ton of freedom, kind of do whatever we want.
Do you plan to stay in St. George or?
Yeah, I love St. George.
Yeah.
At some point we'll buy a boat again. But yeah, especially the neighborhood we live in. We live in an incredible neighborhood. It's really like a dream.
Yeah.
In fact, when Kelsey and I, before we moved away from St. George, they have parade of homes every year.
Yeah, right.
One of our favorite parade of homes always was in that neighborhood, and we always just thought like, man, if we could ever
The parade of
live
homes out there have always
dream
been
come true.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and now we get to live there, so we feel blessed.
What a cool story. So what's next? Like, what do you still have all of that intention for the future things, or you just get to enjoy it, just let it kind of happen?
Yeah, no, it's, man, I think the most important thing somebody can have in life, I believe, is ambition, the desire to progress. And so I've got that. What does that look like exactly? I don't know. We've got the Solid podcast, which Brandon and I love doing. It's like this mission that we're on. We really believe that we've been able to build these incredible lives.
Yeah, and I can share that story.
Yeah, and we had a lot of these just incredible people pour into us and teach us these things, and we came from polar opposite, different walks of life. Brandon grew up with this incredible family, super supportive, upper middle class, parents been married forever, they had jobs for 40 years.
Structure.
Yeah, and I grew up exact opposite.
Yeah.
And so here we ended up in the same place and kind of did the same things, built the same business, and both had very similar outcomes. So, man, it doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, you can go build your dream life.
Anyone can do anything.
Yeah. And so that's why we started Solid, is like, hey, dude, we have all this stuff. Like, let's just go share it, So that's where Solid came from. And we really have built some solid lives. We've watched people as well en route to success, or financial success, I should say, blow up their families and get addicted to stuff. And so we've watched this happen and went, man, like there's a better way. Like you don't have to blow up your family en route to financial success.
Yeah, right.
So as we watched these things happen to other people throughout the years, we realized like, hey, here's some things we could do better. Here's some things that helped us not have that result. And if we could share those things, because in social media today, the loudest person is that person that everybody hears.
Yeah.
Usually the loudest person in the room isn't always the wisest person in the room, because the wisest person is the one usually listening.
Right.
And so that's the hard part about the world today, is you got to be careful who you listen to. And so that's why we were like, you know what? We just go share what we have to share. And, I've never been like the loudest guy on social media trying to post a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
But
it's hard because it's like a space you don't necessarily want to be in, but in order for that's where the audience is. So for you to have the biggest impact and make and share your message to the widest audience of listeners, that's where you've got to be.
Yep.
And I think I said that social media is kind of like alcohol. Yep. If you have a good life and a good message, then it can be really positive.
Yep.
And if you don't, it can be really negative.
Absolutely.
Right? Like
Couldn't
a drink
agree
can
with
make
that
your
more.
day a little bit more fun if you have a good life and a healthy relationship. But if you don't, it could take you down a really nasty path.
Absolutely.
So you've got to be really careful with each of those things, each of those vices, right?
Absolutely.
So the next thing I want to ask, this is something that I ask all the guests, and that is, what would you say in your life is your biggest win?
My family.
Family.
Yeah. I mean, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So, I grew up in a broken home, and, I have this incredible family. I got a great marriage with my wife and 3 beautiful children. They're all healthy. They're competitive. They're athletes.
Do
like, what
you
more could I want?
think if you ask the kid in the trailer,
Mhm.
like when you grow up, what would be the aspirational win you would shoot for? Do you think you had enough understanding at the time to say family, or do you think you would have said
No,
money?
dude, I wanted a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Like-
did you ever get the Ferrari?
No, once I could buy one, I didn't want it. I bought an R8. I actually one day went to go buy a Lamborghini,
Okay.
and
Because I love cars. I love them. I think
Yeah.
cars are awesome. I'm a huge car fan, always have been. And so, like for me, that was always an aspiration that I really wanted to
Yeah.
come true.
that's awesome. Yeah, for me too. I was always like, it was that, like success measurement. Like if you
For
had
sure.
one of these, you were successful,
Right.
or like a Rolex. You have
Yeah.
a Rolex, you're successful.
Yeah, I always wanted
It's
one of those too.
Yeah. And so it's like, one day I went to go buy a Lamborghini, and my taxi guy was like, "Hey, dude, you got to start like doing something."
Yeah, because you weren't spending any money.
No, I was saving it all. And he's
Yeah.
like, you're either, you're either going to pay all this in taxes, or you're going to have some write-offs.
Yeah.
Basically, you're going to give it to the government. You're going to be able to enjoy it. So at first he was like, you should go buy a boat like on the lake. And I'm like, dude, I was working way too hard to like enjoy a boat. There was no way I was ever going to use that.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, go buy a nice car or something like that. I'm like, okay. And so I went to go buy a Lamborghini, and in Henderson, the Lamborghini dealership's attached to the Audi dealership.
Yeah.
They just came out with a brand new R8.
Yeah, the
And
R8's
It was
sexy.
it's the same car as a Lamborghini Huracan.
Yeah.
It just has a different body, but it's
Yeah.
the same motor, same everything. And I've just never been like the flashiest person. I've never been the guy like wanted all the attention.
Yeah, because the R8 is just as good of a car without getting all the attention that the Lamborghini would get.
Exactly. So bought an R8, and it was awesome. I had a lot of fun with it. And then we had another child. One day something happened, and I was driving my R8. I couldn't go get my kids, and we were like,
Yeah.
man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
So like, what do I do? So at one point I had 2 cars, then I'm like, this is just a waste of money. And so like, why am I doing this? So then I ended up actually selling both of those cars and just Ubering for a couple of years, I just Ubered 24/7.
Because you lived in Vegas.
Yeah, I lived in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really what happened was I was hanging out we were in New York, actually. We were at this pool party one day, and there was this guy that was mega, mega successful. He was younger than me, probably had $100+ million net worth.
Wow.
And I asked him, I said, hey, dude, what kind of car do you drive? And he goes, oh, I don't own a car. I go, well, you don't own a car? And he goes, yeah, I just Uber everywhere. It was 100% write-off. And then I could text and make calls. I don't have to worry about anything. And I'm like, dude, that's genius. Because at that time I had a Range Rover, and I just hated it because I went from an R8 to a Range Rover.
Yeah.
And I just didn't love my Range Rover. So I'm like, that's genius. So then I sold my Range Rover, and I just Ubered full-time until I got to St. George, and you can't do
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
No.
Yeah, that's not going to work. So I think one thing that I want to talk about too is obviously with my book and the podcast, Winning the Moment, I don't want people to think it's all about winning, because we already talked about this a little bit. Like losses happen, and they're really important, pivotal moments in our lives. And so the next question that I like to ask people, and it's usually a hard one, but that is, what would you say your biggest loss was in your life so far?
My biggest loss. Gosh, dude. I don't know. I mean, I think if like for me, I was in a business where we would attract and we would recruit tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing for me was I would pour my life into these people, and they would quit on you,
Yeah.
So for a long time, it was like, like, dang, man, why I pour all my time into this person, and then they just quit. They just bail out,
Well, it's hard too, because you were probably saying, or you were sharing all of your success, and then they didn't have it, and they weren't looking internally and being like, I don't have it because I'm not doing what Jeff is doing.
Yeah, they blame me.
Right. They think it's your fault.
Yeah.
But if they were doing the exact same thing as you, obviously the success would be duplicated, but it's hard to find someone who's going to grind at the level that you did.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's one of the things I talk about. How do I put this hunger that I have inside of my children?
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't take away the way I grew up, because that's what gave me this like sickening hunger.
Well, it's a proven fact that statistically your kids will be unlikely to be as successful as you, because you are going to provide a better life for them.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that's why they say second, third generation, but like 80% of third generation business owners fail.
Yeah, it's like that whole saying, first generation had a vision, second generation knew it existed, third generation didn't even know their vision.
Yeah, right. And so it's really hard. And I think about that with my kids now too, because like we had to stay at a a hotel recently, like a DoubleTree, and it was nice. But my kid's like, this hotel sucks.
Yep.
And it was like, you guys you don't have any idea.
Bougie little kids.
You know? Yeah. And it's like taking them to sporting games and stuff and just like what they think life is. And it's like, gosh, how do I balance giving them this that feels so good for me? Like, because I went to basketball games as a kid sitting at the top of the stadium being like, one day I'm going to be in a box. Like, I'm going to go to a game in a box one day. Now we own season tickets in a box and my kids get to go experience that. But how do I create that sense of desire because they don't have it?
I think just expectations, man. That's my philosophy is just expectations, right? It's just building these super high expectations in my children. Like, look, our life might be good, but it could be a whole lot better. And just exposing them. So I almost try to make my kids feel the way about their current life as I felt about my life.
Sure.
Right. And that's just exposing them to more, not being, not trying to be this person where, I feel threatened by someone at a higher level of success rather than I'm inspired. I want my children to be inspired by a higher level of success. And so I like putting them around people that, live on a whole nother level because it inspires me. Hopefully it inspires them and raises their expectations,
I love that because that's a difficult thing to balance, and I love that question because I think what I'm really trying to illustrate for the listeners is that whatever you're going through right now, at some point in your life, it will, one, be irrelevant. You won't even think about it. Or two, you'll be grateful for that struggle that you had because it spurred the opportunity for success.
Yeah, I can look back. I can definitely look back at moments in my life and say, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have made that decision and say, this happened, this happened, this happened, So, I don't know. I think just the losses, those relationships, man, I wish I could have handled it better. I wish, something, but I can't control it. I'm grateful for where I'm at. But if I was to have to choose something, it's just like, man, I could see all these people winning on another level and at least at the minimum, keep those relationships. Cause I think a lot of those people felt like guilty. They quit, cause I was pissed. So I understand like, what the hell,
Right.
So I think just losing those relationships was hard for me. And then Art Williams, he's a multi-billionaire founder of our company. He told me one day, he just said, hey, Jeff, that your responsibility is not to make them win, right? You cannot make them win. You only have one responsibility, and that's to provide a winning example.
Yeah.
And he goes, do you provide a winning example? Yeah. Do you save your money? Do you have a good marriage? Do you have a good family life? Do you live a good life? Yeah. He goes, that's your only obligation.
I love that. That's really good.
Is to provide a winning example.
I love that.
So that's all I try to do, man, is just provide a winning example. But I would say that's been the toughest part of winning in business for me, is just pouring my life into someone and then not having those relationships go the way I perceive them to go.
Sure. And then what about, so you talked about Brandon, but was he your mentor? Did you have a mentor that really helped you? Because I think it's so important, and for people and whatever it is that they're trying to do, to find someone who's done it, because it's going to make it so much easier for you to duplicate that success if you can have a guidepost of, and it doesn't have to be business. It could just be life, like living a good example.
Yeah, so I've always had a philosophy that you should have a mentor in every area of life that person is very good at. And not everybody.
So multiple mentors for you.
Yeah, exactly. And sense. So Brandon changed my life, dude. He is the guy. Without him, I don't know where I would be today. And so he taught me a lot about business, about sales. I got really, really good at closing sales. I got really good at teaching product knowledge. I got really good at presentations. I got really good at putting on events and promotion. So these things that helped me tremendously in business, and Brandon was the spearhead for all of those things, but Brandon retired pretty much. He wouldn't say he retired, but he was pretty retired from our business. He was doing other things.
Yeah.
And where I was 110% focused on our business. And so he and I really didn't talk a lot, probably after 2009.
Okay.
So he was the best man at my wedding. We've had a phenomenal relationship, but after 2009, we just really didn't talk a lot. I might talk to him every few months or something like that, until I sold the business, really.
Because then you guys were back doing like this in the same stages of your life.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny how it works. But so I had these other mentors in my life, a guy named Bill Whittle, who just is this incredible man. He's built an incredible business. He's got an incredible family. And I always looked at Bill Whittle so incredible because we talk about the kids example. Yeah. So he has 2 children, and both his children are mega successful in their own right. And these are kids that grew up with like a black American Express car. Like when his son went to college. So
they didn't have to be driven if they didn't want to be.
Yeah, no, his son, like when his son was 13, Transformers came out. And they were driving down the road, and he saw a yellow Camaro, and he bought the yellow Camaro just because it was cool to sit in his driveway. Like then when his son went to college, he bought him a house to live in and then bought him a lake house up the road as well. They can go to the weekends and go jet skiing and go have fun at the lake. You know, he had the black card. He could do whatever he wanted. But he was a Division I basketball player. He was a very good basketball player. And so, you know, it's like he had this incredible life. And I always looked up to him and went, man, this man is incredible. He treats people really good. He's got very high expectations. He's got an incredible family. And that was because of what Bill instilled into him.
Yeah.
So I had this great relationship with Blake, which was his son's name, and just thought he was such an incredible guy. I'm like, how does a guy turn out like that had everything?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, literally, he wanted
Just
for
nothing. He could just be a jerk.
Yeah, he could, right? And it wouldn't have affected his life at all. He would have lived the exact same life, but he wasn't. He was this incredible man. And so I always just made it intentional to build a relationship with his dad and said, if I could have my kids turn out like his kids turned out.
So he was like a father mentor because you didn't have a dad growing up, right?
Exactly. Right. And so, yeah, he was, I would call him for almost everything, honestly. It was like if I had a business challenge or even spiritual, you know, he's wrote checks to build multiple churches in his city, and just like, it's awesome the life that he has built. And there's not many people in this world that have children that turn out like his children, considering the life he gave
Absolutely.
them.
Yeah, it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
It's an obstacle. So then another question I have for you is the importance of routine. And obviously you're at a different stage in your life now. You could talk about the routine you have now or the routine that you had like at the peak of your growth, you know, or did you even have a routine?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm big on routines and habits.
Yeah.
And just not caring about pain. Like, look, life's uncomfortable. Like, you know, so many people are trying to figure out this thing, like, how do I get balance so I can get rid of this feeling? Well, if you got that feeling inside, it's probably ambition. I just think it was negative. It's positive.
Yeah.
Quit trying to suppress that and go use it to change.
Right.
You know, and so early on in my career, I would, I've never been like this super, you know, you got to wake up at 5 a.m. to be successful. I think that's BS. Like, there's a lot of people who wake up at 5 a.m. that are successful, and there's a lot of people that don't, that are successful.
Right.
And we tend to push our own ideas onto other people and think that that's the only way. And it's just not. It's the way for you, right? But what I did is I would always have the goal to be the first one to the office. Well, I was in financial services office, usually started working around 8 or 9, right?
Yeah.
So I would just have a goal to get to the office around 8 or 9, get all my full-timers there, you know, maybe do a quick little training. Hey, where are you at? What are your numbers for the month? Are you on track for your goals? Let me back up. When I wake up early, the first thing I would always do is write on my 3x5 cards, my goals, my
So that was the number one thing, was your card.
First thing every morning. I had, you know, these 3x5 cards, which now I do on my phone. I still do it. And I think writing them down is probably better.
Yeah, there's like a psychology behind, like, it sticks with you more when you physically write it than if you just text it.
Yeah, so, you know, I think it is better. But so I would wake up every day and I had 3x5 cards to just rewrite my goals, rewrite my affirmations, and pray and self-improve, right? So that's what I would do every morning. First thing, once that's done, I hop in the shower, get ready for the day, and then I go to the office. Be to the office, get my full-timers excited, and then I'd go prospect. So I had to drum up new business, right? So from 9 to noon, we always had this thing where you go prospect, you drum up new business, you go meet new people, shake hands. This is pre-social media.
Yeah, right. So to actually find real people.
Yes, I was building a business where I actually had to go shake people's hands. You know, and I was in a city I didn't know anybody, so I had to go out and meet people. So from 9 to noon, I would go do that. I would go prospect. And then from 12 to 4, I would follow up with those prospects and set appointments. And then I would do appointments across the kitchen table at 6 and 8 o'clock at night. So my goal would be to be double or triple booked at 6 and 8, because 50% of your appointments are going to reschedule or cancel, right? So I always wanted to be so busy that I was the cancelor, not the cancelee. And there was, like, for the first 3 years of my career, dude, there was never a night I didn't end up on at least 2 appointments. And that was because I had 2 6s and 2 8s set every single night. And if they all stuck, thank goodness, I could farm them out to my guys who didn't have appointments or whatever. But that was my goal. And so I did that every day. And then if I hit my goal for the week, I would go on a date night with my wife on Saturday night. If I didn't, I would do appointments Saturday night as well.
Wow.
And then usually on Sunday night, you know, if you look at a calendar, the first day of the week is Sunday.
Yeah.
And employees start their week on Monday morning, but somebody had to prepare for that week to be started, and that's usually the business owner or somebody making sure everything's ready to go. Yeah. And so on Sunday night, I would use Sunday night to prepare. So I would get all my people that were serious at the office. We'd make calls, make sure everybody's week's booked out. We got enough appointments, so that way we're proactive, not reactive. When
so you were actually working like 7 nights a week, unless you had the date night.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I was And I wanted to. It wasn't like I didn't have a boss. I didn't have someone tell me I had to.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, you don't have to show up, but I'm going to be there regardless because I'm trying to hit my goals and dreams. I want to do something big. I'm competitive. I want to do big numbers. I want to be an inspiration, but I also have goals, and I always also promised my wife that I was going to do it. And so many people are like, what's the secret to a good marriage? How about doing what you say you're going to do?
Being honest.
Yeah.
With your partner and to yourself.
Yeah. And I would say it on stage publicly, hey, here's what I was going to do. And then I didn't want my wife to see me like, oh, really? You just took the next day off. He wasn't serious about that. She would never say that, but that's what
you don't want to be on stage saying like, this is what you got to do. And then you don't actually do it because then she knows you're not being genuine to like your message.
Yeah. And then what else doesn't she believe me?
What else? Yeah. What else are you not being genuine about?
So that's how I ran that system, man. And then 6 and 8 o'clock at night, be on kitchen tables. And then my business started to grow. So then, my schedule changed a little bit. My wife was working like crazy because then the business started getting big. So she was at the office. We'd ride to the office together usually, and she'd be working all day. We finally started hiring people to help her because she worked to the office 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Same thing.
She always had good work ethic too.
Dude, she's like, strong work ethic. And she would do that, 6-7 days a week. If we needed to do it, if it needed to be done, she would do it. So I started hiring people to help her, and she would still work just as many hours, but then that helped our business grow.
Yeah.
And so we did that for a lot of years, and really she ran the office and the backside of our business and events and all that kind of stuff until we started having kids, And then we always wanted to be the people raising our kids, so we just hired people to help us with everything else.
Yeah.
Right. So we had like
cleaning the house, mowing the lawn, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
I always say like at a certain point in your life, your time is valuable. And so if someone can do something for less than what your time is worth, it makes more sense to have them do that thing than for you to do it yourself.
There's a good book on that called Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. And he talks about, the whole Jewish philosophy of mastering your craft. Trade works so much. And great book. I think anybody who's
What was it called again?
Thou Shalt Prosper.
Thou shalt prosper.
Phenomenal book on just like why in this book, he's a rabbi, so he talks about why you'll never see like a Jewish bread maker changing the oil in his car.
Yeah, right.
But then you also know, like, especially you live in South Florida, like all the super rich dudes are Jewish.
Yeah.
And then you start learning like, hey, why is this? There's reasons for
Absolutely.
this, and so it's a really, really good book that talks about that. Like,
that's awesome.
Why should you pay someone to mow your lawn?
Yeah, I know I do. And I don't want to do it either. Yeah. I'm like, I pay someone to pick up my dog poop because it's like, that's a task I absolutely hate.
Yeah.
And I'll just never do it. And then it's gross, and it's like $15 a week to have someone come do it. It's like, how could I not do that? Okay. So the next question is, you've read Winning the Moment, right?
Yep.
So great biggest book, takeaway or favorite part?
I think my biggest takeaway that I really loved, man, is so many people think that success is like just this big aha moment, like, oh my gosh, and then this one big thing where in Winning the Moment, which you did a really good job of, is one, telling your story, but helping people understand. It's just these small little habits where you choose to have the winning habit instead of letting that, I guess, lack of discipline take over.
Sure.
And then, the bracelets you use in there. I think it was just phenomenal. I think I was telling my wife, what you did such a good job of in that book is helping anybody from at any stage of their life.
That was the idea.
Go from where they're at and just start building some good habits.
Yeah, it's just somewhere forward.
Yeah, exactly.
You decide where that is. Well, then the last question that I like to ask, and you kind of started it there, but how do you define success?
Success is different for anybody, but I think it's achieving your dreams. It's achieving your goals, and so it's winning in all areas. For me, somebody who's rich but lost their family is not successful. Totally. They're rich and miserable.
Yeah. And they would then trade their riches for their family back, you'd imagine.
Or, you see some dude who's super rich and he's overweight and,
overworked and not healthy and going to die.
Exactly. That's not successful either, right? Yeah. So to me, success is having it all. I've always said, I believe if you can have it all, you should have it all.
I love that.
And I truly believe that. It's like, look, if it's available to you, go get it. Like,
and anyone can too, is the thing, right? Like if your habits are correct and your actions are aligned with your words, then anyone can have that.
Exactly. And so it doesn't matter what it is, whatever you want in life, if you go achieve that, that's success. So for me, it's like having my spiritual life in order, right? Having an incredible family, being in good shape physically and financially, being there for my children, being able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. To me, that's success. And today I live this incredible life. I really do. And I always tell everybody, if you knew what I knew, you would do what I do.
Yeah.
But it's like I worked my guts out for a lot of years.
Yeah.
To get to this place when nobody was watching, and I wasn't doing it for people to watch. You know, I wish I would have filmed more of it. I wish I would have put more of it on social media. I didn't.
Yeah, isn't it interesting to think back now how valuable that would be if like you had a person following you around to the camera every day.
Yeah.
And they could see you on a Sunday night when everyone else is like, oh, I don't want Monday to be here, but you already started your Monday.
I was
on
at the
Sunday
office.
Evening,
Yeah, I was with the office, and I had 100 to 200 to 300 people showing up. And there's some of that on my social media, but I started the business. Social media didn't even exist.
Yeah, right.
So it just wasn't part of my habit.
Do you think you would have been more successful if you had social media for your business?
No doubt about it.
Because you just would have you had so much more reach.
A broader influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that in the world today, I've said this a lot today, it's not easier, but it's better. And what I mean by that is you can make far more money from the same effort, but you still have to pay the price. So
Absolutely,
you still have to pay the same price, just the results are bigger.
Yeah.
But if you don't pay that price, the results are the same
Yeah,
thing,
because
right?
if you
Still
had
small
social
results.
media, but your habits weren't the same and you only worked 4 days instead of 7, then it wouldn't have mattered.
You're still not going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that it's easier. It's just better.
Yeah.
It's like if you look at Ben Hogan, right? World champion golfer.
Yeah.
I think he won 87 championships, and I don't know what he made, some couple $1 million. Tiger Woods did the same thing, made $1 billion.
Yeah.
The same exact amount of, tournament winnings.
Yeah.
And it was the same sport, same everything. And it isn't any easier. It's the same sport. It's just better.
Yeah.
Right. And so, same thing. Look at Michael Jordan. He made $90 million from the sport of basketball. You look at these dudes now, they're signing $90 million a year contracts.
Yeah, Lionel Messi might sign with Saudi Arabia for $400 million a year.
A year.
And even Phil Mickelson's making $100 million a year to golf. He's not even good anymore.
Exactly.
But he built a name.
So it doesn't mean it's easier.
Yeah.
It's just better, right? And so that's when I say social media, I don't know, man. Do I wish? Yeah, but I think people that take advantage of it today, you gain wisdom and a level of awareness, and you just go, it's a great time. I think, especially in financial services like the business we built, I said there's never been a better time, and there hasn't been, because you look at people are stressed out about money. You look at all the crazy stuff happening in our economy today.
Yeah, it's wild.
People don't know where it's going to go. Jobs aren't secure. You look at what's happening with artificial intelligence or replacing.
Oh, of course. Yeah. How many jobs can that take?
Yeah. But it's going to create opportunity for people that take advantage of it.
And who can have a personal connection, and their success is tied to relationships.
Yeah, money doesn't disappear, it just changes hands. So the question is, you got to ask yourself, do you take advantage of these times and just put yourself in a big flowing river of money, and then you get to decide whether or not you take a bucket, you take a 50-gallon drum, or you just decide to build a dam, so it's your perspective on how you want to take advantage of opportunity. But it's a changing world, and it's rapidly changing.
I have 2 follow-up questions. One, you talked about spirituality. Did you grow up with spirituality a part of your upbringing, or when did you, at what point in your life did you decide this is going to be a component of it for me?
So I didn't start going to church till I was 19 years old.
Okay.
And I was a boxer, and my trainer, who was another instrumental person in my life, changed my life, Keith, I wanted to go to the gym 7 days a week, because I wanted to be a good boxer. I didn't have anything else to do except for get in trouble.
Yeah.
So at least I could go to the gym. And so I was going to the gym 6 days a week, but I wanted to go on Sunday. And he's like, Jeff, we don't go to the gym on Sunday. I'm like, well, what do I got to do to go to the gym on Sunday? He goes, we don't go to the gym on Sunday. We go to church on Sunday. I go, that's not what I asked you. Right? I've never gone to church my whole life. What do I got to do to go to the gym on Sunday? He goes, I'll tell you what, you come to church with me, and then I'll let you go to the gym after. I'm like, done. So then I started going to church, and then, then throughout my relationship with Christ started growing over the years, and then I met this incredible pastor in Vegas named Josh Tice, who was actually on
solid. Yeah, that was a really cool episode, actually.
Phenomenal man.
Yeah.
And really, I just loved him, and so we just started building that at that point, which I don't know how many years ago now, it was probably 10 or 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was just like, he really challenged me spiritually, what does it mean to be a great man, and how to attract great people through my example, and rather than leading my life fear-based, which had always been fear-based, I don't want to be broke.
You shared that a lot. Yeah, it was really clear.
Yeah, and wanted to live a faith-based life, and a life that I just know God's going to provide. If I just do the right things happen. And so, he changed my life. And then that really is when my walk with Christ became strong. And it's awesome, man, because my kids, same thing, and watching them and just the questions they ask, is pretty cool, because it's not like, we try to let them learn at their own pace, however they want. And I, like I said, I think everybody has their own journey, but at the same time, I just want to teach my kids that, you can live this life of faith and you don't ever have to be fearful.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be scared of. You just live an incredible life. You have good habits, you make good choices, and life's going to turn out awesome.
So the next question, and I'm genuinely curious on your answer. So you've got kids. We talked about social media. You talked about spirituality. Yeah. How are you going to handle social media with your kids and phones? Like, do your kids get phones? No. Are they going to get social media? Like, how are you handling that?
Yeah. So we might give our kids a phone once a month, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe once a month.
How old your oldest?
My oldest is 8.
8.
He's
okay.
Almost 9.
Okay.
We don't use screens, so we don't really let them watch TV. But I've never watched TV.
Yeah.
If you go back, I'm sure audios of myself on SoundCloud. I tell people, throw your television in the garbage. It's never going to help you win.
Yeah.
So there's nothing on television that's going to help you become more successful. So throw your TV in the garbage. So I've never been that. Like, you could ask my son today. He's never seen me sit on the couch. Even today, like, I have a ton of freedom. I don't have to show up anywhere. I don't do anything. He's never seen me sit on the couch and watch TV ever.
Yeah.
I just don't do it. And that's an example that my kids don't do it.
Yeah.
And so
they only know what they see.
Yeah. I don't really have to fight them. Like, hey, no, we're not going to watch electronics. The only time is they'll see other kids or something. They'll go, hey, Mom, can I see your phone? Or, hey, Dad, can I see your phone? And if, once in a while is okay. But yeah, we don't do screens. So I'm big on no screens, having family meals together, eating breakfast and dinner together.
Yeah.
So if we're going to eat a meal, we're going to eat it together.
Yeah.
We're going to sit down and we're going to eat together. I'm really big on that. And then just being at my kids' events. So another podcast we have coming out hasn't released yet, but it's with Kelsey's aunt and uncle.
Okay.
Phenomenal people. Her family has had a ton of success. Kelsey's grandpa actually has a ton of patents. So brilliant man. He passed away a few years ago, but just this brilliant man. And so both of them kind of have these really unique stories, but the thing that's awesome is they have 4 children, and all 4 of their kids are what I would consider successful. They're not all like mega wealthy or anything, but they're
living great
you looked
lives.
At your kids and you went like, I hope my kids turn out like that.
Yeah.
You go, awesome. And most people that have 4 kids, they usually have 1 or 2 of them. You're like, oh yeah, we'll give them some grace, and the other 2 turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
All 4 of them, they all married really well. They just live these incredible lives. And so, we just had them, and that's getting ready to launch. And I think that for me, having my kids turn out incredible just by the example I'm willing to provide is probably the most important thing,
It's so interesting too. We could probably do a whole nother hour, but we won't. Is that it's so interesting because you're really just sharing like traditional family values, right? And that's really what you're instilling. We're going to eat together. We're going to be together. We're going to have intentional time together. And it's so interesting because in society, it seems like we're progressively moving away from that and away from the family unit. And so it's just an interesting time. Yeah,
it reminds me. The reason I brought up Tucker and Sherry actually was because I asked him a while back, or Kelsey asked him, and it was just a while ago. We're like, man, one day one of his kids had come over for dinner, and he's a great guy. I think I don't know how old Walker is, but maybe he's 25 or something. But he's just got this great wife, and they just had their first baby, and they come over to the house for dinner, and they leave. We're just like, man, what a stud he is, right?
Yeah.
So a week later, we were with Tucker and Sherry, his parents, and Kelsey goes, hey, what did you guys do differently than most? Right? Because he has 5 brothers and sisters as well, and they all have 5 or 6 kids.
Yeah.
And so she's like, what did you, and he goes, there's only one piece of advice I can give you. If you want to raise great kids, he goes, just show up. Just be there.
That's great.
The best piece of advice I can give you. That's all we did differently than most people is just show up.
Yeah.
And we talk about that on that podcast. I think it comes out in maybe Monday next week. But and I think that's one of the things I've always tried to do is just be there, for my kids. It's like, your kids look for you in the crowd. They got a soccer
100%.
game. They just want to see you there.
Right.
And if their game's an hour, I mean, what's an hour? You can leave and then go back to work if you want, or whatever you got to do.
For sure. Yeah, I try and coach all my kids' stuff and be involved in it. And especially in today's world too, it's like if they're going to be doing something, I want to be a part of it. Yes. I want to make sure that ecosystem that they're in is a positive one, and that there's no cancerous things happening inside of that setting.
Right. Yeah, just being a good influence. Yeah. So I think when it comes to social media for kids or screens or just this modern world, is I'm not scared to be like, the older I get, actually the more conservative I become.
Sure.
Because I realize how important these values are. And I don't have to tell my kids. All I have to do is be that great example.
Yeah.
And they see it. Someone not too long ago asked my son about about me watching television. And he's like, I've never seen my dad watch TV. And I was like, so proud.
That's awesome.
And I don't have to worry about him doing it.
Yeah.
It's just these things like lifting weights. I lift weights every day.
Yeah, so they see that, and then that's going to create a healthy lifestyle for them.
Every day, yeah. Like we used to go to Lifetime in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And we would drop our kids off at the kids center, and they would go do karate or learn Spanish or whatever. They had all these cool classes, a phenomenal gym. If anybody's ever been to Lifetime, they know what I'm talking about. They do a great job. But the thing that I love and the thing I'm grateful for when COVID hit is we built a gym at our house, and not everybody has the opportunity to do that. But
but you can do so much at your house without weights.
You can.
Like you can have an amazing workout with just your walls and your body. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing what you can do with just using your body.
Yep.
So even if you don't have the means to make a gym, you can work out at home and have an incredible impact.
Absolutely. And you really can. Yeah. I mean, you can buy some adjustable dumbbells and still get a bunch done.
Yeah.
And but yeah, the thing that I'm grateful for is when we put a gym at our house, then they see us. And a lot of times they want to do it with us.
Of course,
I posted some of this on my social media.
Absolutely.
And I don't have to ask them, hey, do you want to go work out? They just come in and go, hey, can I work out with you? Heck yeah, you can work out with me.
Absolutely.
So I think that's, just another thing. Just lead by example. You have these parents who they smoke cigarettes and they tell their kids, don't smoke, and kids are like, well, you do. It's like if you smoke, your kids are probably going to grow up and smoke.
100%.
And it's just the way it goes. If you don't want your kids to drink, don't drink.
Yeah.
You don't want your kids to cuss, don't cuss. If however you want your kids to act that way, and that's probably how they're going to act.
Yeah, that's a great message. Well, I think that it's important for people who have listened to this episode and we're like, man, Jeff's got all these nuggets. So why don't you let them know, like, where's the best way to find you?
Instagram. We've got the Solid Podcast, which is, Solid Podcast on Instagram.
And that's on all the iTunes, iTunes,
all
Spotify, wherever you can get that. Do you guys have a YouTube channel for that too?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we do. Same thing, Solid Podcast. And then social media, mine, you can just type my name, Jeff Fieldstad, or Mr._Fieldstad, I think is my handle.
Okay.
So that's the best place.
Well, thank you so much for being on today. We could have talked for 4 more hours.
Yeah, man, you're a stud. It's been good catching up with you these last few months, dude.
That's what's nice about the podcast is there's not very many times in society today where you sit down undistracted and talk to someone for an hour besides like the people you live with.
Yep.
And I've realized like how valuable that human connection is and that and how absent it is in life.
Absolutely.
Right? Because if you and I were just even at a bar, if we were like, let's go get a drink together, we'd both be checking our phones throughout the time or watching something on the TV. Like there wouldn't be the connection that we have here.
Yeah. That's another powerful thing about like dinners with your family. That's why I'm so nuts about it.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate you having me.
And follow us on YouTube and on iTunes. And then, of course, you can follow me on Instagram at Cody Aiden, and you can follow our guests on the Solid Podcast or Mr._Jeff Fieldstead.